So last week we studied Egypt, and you read the myth of Osiris, who is one of the first chronicled dying and resurrected deities, along with Innana. Osiris's death and resurrection are different from Innana's, of course, and they, have some things in common. Some things begin to change, and some of those things will begin to change in the later myths that we will see. Osiris is murdered. He is resurrected, and in the Byron book he's resurrected twice, but I haven't seen that in other versions. But at any rate, he dies, he's resurrected, but he can't live in the land of the living, and therefore he must go to Tuat and live with the dead, even though he has come back to life. These are the rules that have been set into motion, and they cannot be altered. And he doesn't argue. He doesn't say, hey, married to Isis, just had, this little baby Horus that was, conceived while I was dead, but hey, we won't go into necrophilia or any of those types of things. So we go on over to Sumeria, whose civilization was developing at about the same time, and we read about Innana. Now, there's two versions of Innana. Well, one's Innana and one is Ishtar, but I'm going to concentrate on the story of Innana as we have it from Sumeria. Now, the circumstances of Innana's death are quite different than Osiris's. I also, because I have a master's degree in literature, I also look at this at the point of view of literary devices. Now, of course, Gilgamesh is the first piece of literature we have, but Innana does have some good literary devices, and I'm not going to dwell on those because this really isn't a literature class, but I do want to mention one. From the great above, she opened her ear to the great below. From the great above, the goddess opened her ear to the great below. From the great above, Innana opened her ear to the great below. And I like this because it goes from the general to the specific. At first it is just she, and then it is the goddess, and then it is centering in on Innana. So why does Innana go to the underworld? She doesn't have to. It isn't in the case of Osiris where she dies and is required to go to the land of the dead. In fact, it's quite the opposite. She chooses to go, and then she dies. Innana is the queen of the above. She is the mistress of heaven and earth, but she doesn't know anything about death. She, can't experience or can't understand that unless she dies. Now, Ereshkigal, her sister, and that doesn't necessarily denote a blood kinship between these two goddesses. They often refer to each other as brother, sister, uncle, even when they are not directly related. As a matter of fact, Innana refers to Dumuzi, her husband, as her brother. But Ereshkigal is the goddess of the underworld, as we saw in the Sumeria PowerPoint. And in many ways, she is the counterpart of Innana, where Innana is light, Ereshkigal is dark, and we see that in later goddess triads. But at any rate, Innana goes to the underworld to get wisdom or knowledge. Now, at one point, she does say to Neti, the gatekeeper, who asks her, "Why are you here?" And she says, "I am here in order to attend the funerary rites of my brother-in-law, Ereshkigal's husband." But we never hear about that again. I think Innana is giving a little bit of a recreational lie there. Innana goes to the underworld in order to understand death. So she can not only be the queen of the great above, but in some aspects, she can be a queen of the great below and be the queen of all. She goes out of curiosity. Later deities will go in order to be saviors. Persephone in the earlier myth goes to the underworld in order to save or to help the souls of the dead. And of course, the big savior in modern times is Jesus. I don't know that Innana goes to be a savior figure, but her knowledge does perhaps benefit all of humankind. And with her replacement Dumuzi, and then his replacement Geshtinana, we do see a savior figure in that of the sister. She is the first willing propitiatory, as she performs the first willing propitiatory act in order to save somebody, and that is her brother.